The room was silent except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. The scent of antiseptic lingered in the air, yet it could not mask the heavy weight of despair that filled the space. On the hospital bed lay Alexander Carter, a man once celebrated as one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. His empire had stretched across industries, real estate, technology, finance, and yet, at this moment, his wealth meant nothing. His hair had grayed faster than expected, his face carried the lines of both age and regret, and his once commanding voice was reduced to whispers. The doctors had presented him with options: aggressive treatment, surgeries, therapies that could prolong his life, but he had refused them all. "I've lived enough," he muttered coldly to anyone who tried convincing him otherwise. "What's the point of more days if they're empty?" For Alexander, life had lost its meaning long before his diagnosis. Success had brought him everything except true happiness. He had driven away his family with neglect, ruined friendships with arrogance, and replaced love with loneliness. Now, lying on his hospital bed, he was ready to surrender to death. But fate had another plan. Into his life walked Dr. Isabella Hayes, a young physician known not just for her skill but for her compassion. She had chosen medicine not for prestige but because she believed deeply in saving lives, even those who didn't want to be saved. Her colleagues often warned her, "You can't care too much, Isabella. It'll break you one day." But she couldn't help it. To her, every patient was a story worth fighting for. When Isabella first met Alexander, she was struck not by his wealth or reputation, but by the emptiness in his eyes. He wasn't just sick in body, he was sick in spirit. And something in her heart whispered that this man wasn't ready to die, not truly. She tried to speak with him, gently at first, but he dismissed her like he dismissed everyone else. "Young lady," he said bitterly, "don't waste your kindness on me. I'm done. Let me go." But Isabella refused to give up. Day after day, she would stop by his room, sometimes with no medical agenda, just to talk. She asked about his childhood, his dreams, the things he once loved before money consumed him. At first, he resisted, shutting down every attempt. But slowly, cracks appeared in his hardened shell. He told her about the little town he grew up in, how he once dreamed of being an artist, how his mother had believed in him before she passed away. His eyes glistened with a rare softness when he recalled her voice, and Isabella noticed something. There was still life inside him, buried beneath layers of bitterness. Yet Alexander's refusal of treatment placed Isabella in a moral dilemma. She knew she could be risking her career if she intervened without his consent. But her conscience gnawed at her. She couldn't simply stand by and watch a man with so much left unspoken fade away. Her colleagues told her, "You'll get yourself suspended. Don't cross that line." But she couldn't silence the voice inside her that said saving him was worth everything, even her career. One night, when Alexander's condition worsened and he hovered dangerously close to the edge, Isabella made a choice. She called in a favor from a specialist friend and initiated an emergency procedure that could stabilize him. It was risky, not just medically, but professionally. If the hospital administration found out, she could lose her license. But as she worked through the night, her hands steady, her heart knew she was doing the right thing. When Alexander opened his eyes the next morning, weak but alive, he looked at her with both anger and confusion. "Why?" he whispered. "Why didn't you let me go?" Isabella met his gaze, her own eyes brimming with tears. "Because you're not done living. You think you've lost everything, but you still have something no money can buy, a chance to make things right. If you leave now, you'll die with regret. But if you fight, even for a little while longer, you can leave this world with peace." Her words pierced him deeper than any scalpel. For the first time in years, Alexander felt something stir inside, a longing, a hope, a fragile flame that he thought had died long ago. Over the weeks that followed, Isabella stood by him, guiding his recovery not just physically but emotionally. She encouraged him to reach out to his estranged daughter, whom he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. At first, he resisted, ashamed of the years he had neglected her. But Isabella pushed him gently, reminding him that forgiveness was possible. One day, with trembling hands, Alexander picked up the phone. The conversation with his daughter was awkward, tearful, and raw. But it was real, and it cracked open a door that had long been shut. As his body healed, so too did his heart. He began to see life through new eyes. He watched the sunrise from his hospital window and felt grateful. He listened to the laughter of nurses in the hallway and realized joy still existed in small places. And every day, he looked at Isabella with growing admiration. She had risked everything, not for his money, not for recognition, but simply because she cared. One evening, as she checked his vitals, Alexander said softly, "You've given me something no one ever has, hope. I used to think love was weakness, that compassion was a burden. But you've shown me it's the greatest strength." Tears filled Isabella's eyes, but she smiled. "And you've shown me that no life is beyond saving, not as long as there's a heartbeat." By the time Alexander was discharged, he was not the same man who had walked into the hospital. He sold part of his empire and started a foundation for underprivileged patients, inspired by Isabella's selflessness. He reconnected with his daughter, slowly rebuilding the bond he thought was lost forever. And though his days were still numbered, he now lived each one with meaning, no longer running from life but embracing it. As for Isabella, she did face consequences for her risky decision. There were inquiries, warnings, and sleepless nights of uncertainty. But in the end, the board recognized that her actions came from a place of humanity. She kept her license, though she knew she would have accepted losing it if it meant saving Alexander's soul. And so, the story of the dying millionaire who found new life through the compassion of a young doctor spread beyond the hospital walls. It became a reminder that money, success, and power mean nothing without love, forgiveness, and hope. Sometimes, it takes just one person willing to risk everything to reignite the will to live in another. When asked about his greatest investment, Alexander no longer mentioned skyscrapers or companies. Instead, he smiled and said, "It was a doctor who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She saved more than my life, she saved my soul." And in that truth lies the message: no matter how broken, bitter, or hopeless someone may seem, compassion has the power to heal in ways medicine never can.